Polymorphs are popping off, huh? Everyone loving that. I'm seeing like offers for 20 ETH for some crazy stuff.
Oh
Offers?
wow.
Polymorph's gonna make it.
On Juiced. I tweeted and said, "Don't even think about it."
I mean,
I got one listed for 420 ETH.
Nice.
I remember when
I got the sharded mines Pepe listed for 777, 777. Yeah.
I can't even see it because OpenSea's down.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I'm
Perfect timing
into
for an AMA.
sharded.
We should tweet that out. We
Yeah,
should
how
tweet
ready
that
you
out. Like,
guys?
OS is down. Check out the AMA of when you don't have to worry about this anymore.
Well, that's what I was talking to Ryan about, actually, just so everybody is on the same page, because we have we're going to launch it in like a beta version and an alpha version. I'm trying to get like the timelines of when they come out, like when the actual marketplace comes out, because like just for, especially for the people who weren't on the last one, when we came out with Universe, we had a like wide range of ideas and things that we wanted to work on, like ranging from like extremely ambitious to attainable. And one thing that I think that everyone should know is that when we like set out to build Universe, like NFT volumes were like $10 million a month. And then like we were rightfully ahead of the market, but like the back end that you need to run a marketplace that has like that number of people. And like keep in mind, this isn't Uniswap where like bots aren't even interacting with the interface. They're just like essentially market making directly to the smart contracts. A lot of Uniswap's like volumes don't necessarily affect like the front end. So ultimately OpenSea, like from growing in $10 million in volume to $10 billion in volume, and those being actual people like on there transacting those volumes, you're talking about basically the largest app in like the history of DeFi at the time was Uniswap, and could have handled the backend that we were originally building. So like as the market grew aggressively, so did the scope of the project, right? And some of the other stuff like long term, like deep decentralization, those things obviously need to scale with the entire like blockchain. But a lot of what we've seen, in the same way that I think like this community's probably gotten spooked once or twice, seeing like when Andre from YFI like was dropping like the smart contracts in front end. I basically saw that, and originally I like probably had the same feeling that all of y'all did, like, damn it, Andre forks everything and does an awesome job. The problem is that's easier to do in DeFi because DeFi doesn't get as much traffic as these NFT platforms do. You can't, if there was a DeFi protocol that just got absurd amounts of front end traffic, that ends up becoming a moat in and of itself, because you have to have a back end that supports that. And so where this kind of like forkability, I think that all of us learned in DeFi, and it looks like immediately like, oh my God, we're going to get wrecked. It's not possible to just easily have a backend that can handle that load in the same way that it's, I mean, even now, right? OpenSea is down. That OpenSea backend probably is still the backend that exists in anything in crypto except maybe Coinbase, and even Coinbase goes down, right? That's very different than the smart contracts in the front end operating. So like the scope of this entire project was different than the things that we do in DeFi. And naturally the scope of it grew as we went. So I have not at all been like scared or offset or off put by like the type of like kind of front end, and here's the smart contract. Like when Larva Labs dropped that front end with like 0 fees, that's cool, but that has to be essentially run on the back end, and that back end could cost money to run. So the concept of a 0 fee marketplace, like the money's got to come from somewhere. Everybody's just going to be bitching about the server's always going down. So I essentially have not been worried about like a competitor coming out that's going to come from one of those like, hey, we just rushed to market type scenarios, because I know like when I saw SOS, like it was innovative. I thought the vampire attack was clever. Ultimately, they're going to run into the same problem unless they've been building a backend in silence for 6 months. They've got like a journey in front of them, and same will go for Lookthrift. They're ultimately using the API of OpenSea's backend, which has both, you know, issues with things being able to be like affected on that backend. That you're essentially like borrowing their servers or infrastructure, right? So ultimately, when OpenSea goes down, so are all these other platforms that just plug into OpenSea's API. So that's a competitive advantage of OpenSea. They can essentially brick the services that are using that if they become a problem. Or they can sell that as a service, which maybe they do if they get to the point that NFT backends become architected in a substantially different way than like, you know, historical ones. With all that said, and like without getting too deep in the weeds on that, when we actually release our product, because we have seen excitement around even a slightly decentralized competitor, but still using some of like the shortcomings of OpenSea's API, we're probably going to launch with like a beta and a beta and a test version. I have to go upstairs. I can't make them stop barking. It's the way dogs are. In the same way that we're probably just gonna have to deal with a little barking. I have like 300 pounds of dogs, and the guy that is mowing my lawn, they don't like him in my backyard. But in the same way that well, I went upstairs now, so you'll still hear him a little bit in the background. But okay, so the reason that we're doing that is because we could have done it sooner, but we didn't want to launch what we had and essentially keep it like 3 months in market, where basically we had that backend could get throttled at any point if we became a legitimate competitor. And then we just gave alpha on all the open source smart contracts as well as the interface changes, right? Meaning they could just brick us and take all the code. So now that we feel like we can go through kind of a multiple week testing period, I think whenever that actually starts, I think that the full alpha version with the backend that we built, that's a true enterprise backend that will be competitive with OpenSea's backend, we're probably still 5-6 weeks away from that backend being complete and everything else is done. The main thing that is a problem on that backend is essentially what scrapes the blockchain and shows images instantaneously, because a dirty secret of the NFT industry of the past is that a lot of those images don't exist anymore. They actually only exist on OpenSea's API because it scraped the backend for all of those years. So figuring out workarounds of having to scrape all of that, get it in somewhere, which that's ultimately not our fault. Like in the olden days, a lot of those NFTs were put on IPFS nodes that don't exist anymore. That's why like Jimmy from Avastars has been talking about on-chain metadata and putting images on chain, and people have started to use Arweave. They're looking at other solutions for storage, but back in the day, all that stuff didn't exist.
I mean, that's
And
why like
like
CryptoPunks is entirely like on chain, right?
well, CryptoPunks were minted when like
Yeah, it was
nobody was
cheap.
using Ethereum. So like now, if you wanted to put like 100 MB like video on a Ethereum, like you're paying a fortune just to get the thing minted. Back then, they probably minted all the CryptoPunks for $500. Like it's not that cheap anymore. So like putting all the images on base layer Ethereum just isn't realistic anymore, right? So people use the shortcut in between when like DeFi was blowing up and like when NFTs actually blew up. They used IPFS nodes, and if the project didn't work, maybe those IPFS nodes got abandoned. So I think that our like minting technology, our auction technology is taking account for a lot of that stuff. But suffice to say, everything is in a spot now that we're comfortable that even if we get bricked by being like a legitimate competitor, that we have like the alpha version, and we're being conservative saying 6 weeks. Like ultimately we have numerous scrapers, numerous like functions of the back end, the way that it's architected. We changed from like a monolithic structure to a microservices structure, which means other people can run that back end and essentially uphold parts of the back end. So if it goes down, we can essentially have long-term like a mesh network of backends. One goes down, the other one goes up. So we think that we built an actually competitive product, but the innovation is not on the kind of more simple things like the front end and the smart contracts. Like if that's all we needed, we would have launched 6 months ago. And so in that regard, like that's probably the part that I'm most excited about, because I kind of almost laugh to myself when I look at some of those ones that have come out recently, and I'm like, good luck, because you're going to find out now everything that we had to do to build it. And also shout out to the OpenSea team, because as much as everybody complains about them going down, I don't think that people realize that they're going down for a reason, and it's not an easy tech problem. And they're scaling, they're building money that's a legitimate float. But I do think that there is a massive demand for a truly decentralized service, because I don't think people would care about these kind of fly by night like chances at going at it if there wasn't like a legitimate need in the market. And I also think that one of the things that has boded well in our favor, where we had a lot of different things that we wanted to work on, all we ever saw on our Twitter was decentralized OpenSea. And some of that essentially expanded as not because it went down all the time, but actually due to other things that, I think that they lost some of the NFT community's trust. So one thing I do want everyone to know is that like, I've also read a whole bunch that some of the times when I've been tagged and like, when is Universe coming? It's essentially around DCMAs. And so we still have to run a front end server in the same way that Uniswap does. The way that you can think about what's coming is that if OpenSea's Coinbase, Universe is Uniswap. Uniswap had a long time to build when they were originally starting, and they didn't need that degree of backend. So they were essentially running front end powered to smart contracts. So when people say like Uniswap had to take something off the interface because the US government or someone else told them to, whoever's running our servers is going to have to do the same thing on universe.xyz. The benefit of Uniswap, though, and where this becomes actually decentralized, is they can't stop the order books. It's a smart contract. that's permissionless running on chain. So when those things start to happen, ultimately a project, we're not going to get in everybody else's legal war for them. If somebody violates someone's copyright, if we don't take it off of our interface, AWS might. But if somebody else wants to set up an interface because they think that they're in the right, that's your ability to do so. Because we can't shut anyone down at the smart contract layer, meaning all the liquidity, all the pooling of liquidity, all the aggregation layers that will probably be built on top of Universe and on top of all these other interfaces that plug into it. That's ultimately the power that we are essentially giving to the NFT community. But ultimately, like, I'm not going to jail on all of y'all's behalf. So if y'all want to do sketchy stuff, do it on your own interface. Like, we can't uphold like child porn. We can't put like Nazi stuff on there. I'm not trying to get in like political arguments. I'm trying to create a censorship-less platform, but the platform is not just the interface. So you can do with this as you please, but be responsible. Ultimately, no one can stop you unless you're doing something illegal, and then that's your fault for running that on the interface. So I just want to be clear so that the expectations are actually aligned, because I've read that, and if we get DCMA'd and don't take it down, they're just going to hit up AWS. I get that people can run their own servers. That's not what we signed up for. We wanted to build a censorship-resistant platform. That doesn't mean that we want to host and uphold the front-end interface that is. And most of this stuff actually really just has not to do with the crazy things. And I think DeFi has more to be concerned about with this, where DeFi could potentially be running some type of a security. There's other types of laws. But there will be essentially things that, like, I mean, it's already in the world, right? Like, you can run things in China that are not allowed in the US. You can run things in the US that aren't allowed in China. And DCMA is like a legal dispute, right? Like when we got DCMA'd by Pepe, which launched this project, I could have fought it, and I had a legal dispute. We could have also gotten taken off by OpenSea. But what I could have done as part of fighting it is me as a project could have hosted my own interface and continued to run it and fought that legal battle until I won, and then it essentially is back on there. So we're talking about the aggregation of liquidity as opposed to this is just going to be like anarchy and nobody can stop it on universe.xyz. So
I mean, I think it's important to like let everyone know there are like safeguards in place to take stuff down, but it's not just like one person. There's like a guardian system. I don't know if we've ever documented it yet, but it will be it will be in the documents.
right, because then otherwise, like, the people running the interface are essentially liable. But again, it's the same as Uniswap, right? Like, I know Sentiment's on here, like, they took S Euro off of Uniswap. They really didn't. They didn't take it off the protocol. They took it off their interface. And that's because Uniswap runs that interface. Long term, where we build from that, I don't know where that goes. We'll continue to decentralize as much as humanly possible, but we still have to live in the real world and adhere to like the rules. Y'all can do whatever you want. I'm not going to be liable for it. So that's like one of the most important things is just understanding the timelines and what everything is going to come out. So when we do originally launch, it's going to kind of be a testing period. One of the things I actually think we should do is look at those those protocols that Vampire attacked OpenSea. And during that testing period, we could probably Vampire attack those, take out the whales and see who's actively interested in those platforms and ask them to come test with us and essentially compensate them to do that. And then we'll know, we'll have time to adjust and change things about the front end until we roll out like the enterprise backend. So basically doing kind of a soft launch. That doesn't mean that the thing's not going to work. Doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to trade NFTs, list NFTs, do all the same things. but we won't be truly decoupled until we release the other end. But I don't think we need that in order to start. So I know that the marketplace is what everybody's most excited about, but the same thing is actually happening with minting, which I think realistically we could launch early next week. Minting's also kind of a beta versus an alpha. Our initial minting contracts that are going to exist are basic minting contracts. They're audited, they work. We released them a while ago and actually realized like they need a ton of work by the time that the auction comes out, and there's not that many people using them yet. People will use the minting it's kind of the same as OpenSea. People mint on OpenSea because they can also like auction there and they can trade and interact. Most people aren't just like pinging into the OpenSea minting contracts if they already know how to code it, because they could just like mint it themselves, right? So we wanted to figure out how we could essentially like innovate outside of just being like basic minting contracts. And so Tim, Illustrator, was very like strict on this particular one, and like the functionality that like him and a lot of his circles and the people that he's connected with that are just deep NFT heads, the type of functionality that they would want. So what I mean by this is like instead of being able to mint like just a ERC 721, getting into being able to do like a lot more in-depth things with like 1155, being able to mint like collections that own collections. I'm not saying that necessarily all of this is coming with the alpha version, but I think that everyone knows like the way that you mint like generative art or whatever altered state machine did with those brains requires different types of contracts than what it took to mint like punks or the Pepes. And so with that said, I mean, even the polymorphs themselves were extremely innovative NFTs, and that is a lot of what spawned like the fact that you can change your backgrounds on your fluffs, or that you can add music to the fluffs, so that they'll be able to interact into burrows. So we realized that not only is there a massive like opportunity to improve in the on the minting functions, or I'm sorry, on the marketplace itself, we also want to bring a lot of utility into the minting contracts. So we're going to turn the original contracts back on, because we don't want kind of the alpha version of the minting contracts to hold back the alpha version of the marketplace, because like ultimately we could build more and more minting contracts and just never launch anything, because it's like there's so much that you could essentially do with them. So we kind of put a stop on it and said, but like those things are done. We just need to get them audited. We need to build a front end into it. So as soon as we build like the alpha marketplace, we'll also launch alpha minting contracts into it as well. And then we like are going to get a ton of requests and changes to like amend and build on top of those.
Or just like even other versions of them, right? Like you could say that like there could be different minting contracts underneath the same UI. So like whatever the needs are of the people using them, those needs could be reflected inside of those minting contracts. So there could be like an option.
People will be able to put their own types of minting contracts on there. Like we've worked with a couple different groups like that had like very innovative contracts. And so I really don't want like Universe to become like a walled garden. Ultimately, the more utility that the ecosystem can get on the platform, the better, right? So like instead of just having one way that you can mint, again, there's infinite ways that you could mint. So that's just going to be an ever-going thing that we're always adding minting contracts, and we'll probably come up with very innovative ways that we like whitelist audited contracts, and where we don't charge a fee for minting, or auctions, maybe we bake that in if people are going to be coming on and putting on a bunch of code the way that like people in YFI introduce strategies, people aren't going to do that for free. So it's just an option. Governance is going to have to make those types of decisions on where we go. Because ultimately the question would then be, are you taking away from the artist by giving them a ton of different options, or are you enabling them to be more artistic because they have a bunch of things that they can do and you're not limiting them? I don't think we take fees on minting and auctions. Obviously, governance can change their mind on that later. This is how we'll give it to the world. It's ultimately going to be y'all's decision to make these decisions long term. I'm just kind of giving you some options and how like this is going to be very different than the NFT marketplaces and experiences that y'all have had up to this point. It's not all going to be day one, but this is where it, you know, progresses as long as we're all successful. And then the auctions contracts, those are very close to being done as well, but we're obviously in a multiple sprint to get 3 different things out simultaneously that I know everybody's been waiting on for a long time. Almost all of them will probably have features cut. And then after we get kind of the alpha marketplace out, then we'll probably have another 2-month sprint that we get out all the additional features. And so there's going to be a lag time where we're fixing probably bugs that were missed. We're probably fixing things that people just don't like. And we're trying to get the alpha versions of everything else out. So there will be kind of a graceful period where hopefully y'all give us like a little bit of patience and know everything that's coming. But with that said, I'm more setting expectations. And if I was like playing hype mode, I will absolutely say that I think that what we're about to deliver is superior to anything else in the market. And the shortcuts that we took anywhere on decentralization are either technical, like technically impossible right now, or would have been massive builds that we're going to have to work towards long term as a community. But I think that everyone knows, having looked at me and Troy's history up to this point, we're dedicated to working through those things, and like we'll do it with all of y'all. But yeah, it's obviously we're not going to release the most perfect thing in history, but I do think it's a massive step up to what exists now. That's all the main.
And in the right direction. Like there's a ton of other work going on past this that's going on that's like that's even the next step. But like we got to get this stuff out for everyone so that you can understand what this is. Just like how Uniswap had to get their stuff out for people to understand what a decentralized exchange was, and then you had people building stuff on top of like LP pools and how they used it. It's going to be the same thing, right? But like the first iteration of it, it's going to be, pretty straightforward of what it is. And then where it gets exciting is how people use the decentralized systems of it. And then past that, like what we can even add to that, and then how that can also be brought to the greater ecosystem. So
Yep.
like the work is not stopping, and we have steps past this, and we all are very
We
excited to
just
get
had
this
to
out for
settle
everyone.
on something that was decentralized, like enough, right? Because decentralized is a relative term. Like ultimately, universe. I mean, if someone's a big uni bag holder, don't go like yell to Hayden because he's my friend. But our token distribution is already more decentralized than Uniswap. We don't have an Andreessen Horowitz that holds a massive bag. No one owns more than 10% of the entire protocol. It will actually launch more decentralized. But in the same way that Uniswap is substantially more decentralized than Coinbase, we'll be all of those examples that I gave, we will actually be more decentralized than. You can go on Dune Analytics and look at all the token breakdowns. It should decentralize more over time with more usage. That's the way that these networks are supposed to grow. But being that it's a relative term, it's not going to be as decentralized as Bitcoin out of the gate, right? Ethereum isn't. You've got to get there as an ecosystem. So we're probably saying decentralized in different throughputs and mindsets. It's going to be the most decentralized marketplace that exists for NFTs. By far. I don't know if anybody has immediate questions or Troy wants to expand on any of that. That's
Actually,
just a high level overview.
yeah, I'm kind of curious if people in the community? Because I mean, it is an AMA. Like, do you guys have any questions about that? Curiosities? Does it make sense?
Yeah, from my perspective. By the way, everybody has the option to chime in. You can set up your push to talk and join the conversation. That makes sense from my perspective as a long-term community member.
So I think like I was on an InterDAO kind of community call earlier. One thing that Troy and I have talked about both through like Barnbridge and Universe is I've started to do a lot more AMAs, and I think that we have these like every 2 week recorded calls. Ultimately, there's things that we're doing across, like if you think of Universe as a mesh network that like ultimately like polymorphs spawned things like Fluff World and ASM. Obviously, those people have their own technology, their own teams, but they work like very close with our ecosystem. They're people that supported us all the way from back to Barnbridge, built with us. Those, uh, if you look at most of them, they have some type of DAO structure that's running them, and that's normally like a fork of the Barnbridge DAO that later like InterDAO improved upon. So like one of our main goals since 2021 was very much across everything about getting the products out. Like I think I read somewhere that like Landworks from InterDAO is like launching today or tomorrow. ASM's obviously coming. Burrows are getting minted today with Fluff World. Universe is obviously coming.
I think Z said Friday or Saturday, not to interrupt, but for
I just
Landworks.
read what you wrote, but it's whatever. I'm not trying to drop alpha there. I'm just saying none of us were like lazy along the way. Like even with all of the Barnbridge stuff, we had to get the products out. I think now we've had time to see like how these DAOs work. And the good thing about having this mesh network of DAOs that's using similar tech is what gets utilized on one and starts working for one can obviously get utilized across the system. Like even Zeus from Olympus told me that a lot of the reasons like they went with the DAO first was because he used to hang out in the Barnbridge servers. But basically building those systems also takes time, and we could have spent all the time perfecting a DAO or perfecting the products. So I will say that a lot of what's happening in the Slack channels in this concept of like core team, we've tried to like hire from within the community and the more active people, but ultimately where I think DAOs driving protocols and community driven DAOs driving protocols goes is in 5 years is if we're successful. Sorry, I'm like walking up and down my stairs. I think that we really start to blur the line between what community is, what core team is, who makes what decisions, even down to Troy and I have talked about who deserves like an email of something, right? And so some of these features are more like theoretical at this point, but we are going to start moving a lot more of the communications to Discord. And the reason for that, even starting down with, we're working on a project that essentially is going to be like a Chrome browser extension where I don't know if any of y'all have used like Muesli. It's essentially a design tool that designers often use it every time that they like open a new tab in Chrome. It like sparks like design and inspiration because it's like a curated list of dope ass designs essentially. Well, we want to use that same mechanism to attract people to Universe. This is also what like OpenSea got in trouble for, was how they were curating content and the gatekeeping of that. That's like not going to be built into our DAO out of the gate. We just need to release it as a feature and make sure people even like it before we actually take the time to build like content curation into the actual DAO functionality. Because you're talking about on base layer Ethereum, there's going to be a ton of gas fees to be making determinations of what goes where everywhere. And that's something we're all going to have to work together on. the governance may eventually have to move to a layer 2 if there's that many degrees of voting and that many things that we're talking about. But I do think that's going to be absolutely like dope. But that particularly the way that I think that we offset the fact that that thing's not going to be necessarily driven by the DAO out of the gate. I do think that we need to be deciding what is put on that content curation in the complete open that anyone can read. Anyone in our community, they all have access to it so that no one can essentially abuse the data any other way that transparent data can essentially be abused. We don't want that like behind a wall, essentially. So I think that these AMAs will probably be more frequent. And I don't think that you're going to have to wait, every 2 weeks to hear from us on a recorded call where you can't just hop up and talk to us. If these things get huge, we'll probably have to turn them into spaces. But for now, I think we're good. But like, I wasn't hanging out as much in the Discord anymore because everybody was just asking when marketplace. And I was like, I mean, we're building it. It's not easy. Right now that it's closer, it is time to talk to everyone because we have stuff to act like. We're going to be launching a protocol. There's actually something to govern now. Up to this point, there hasn't been. I'm kind of not answering all the questions head on because I want to get through some of the things that we went through in the last AMA because that wasn't recorded, so that everyone can know some of like why that AMA got like a lot of excitement within the community. One of the things is particular to polymorphs. And before I get to polymorphs, I'll bring up like lobby lobsters. I want to build into lobby lobsters long term because I like them. But that's not like a project that we like essentially have a roadmap for, right? Like we gave all that money away and we were very transparent about it. They're built on the same tech stack as the polymorphs, so we can build things into them long term. They can't be a priority over like the marketplace right now. In the same way that polymorphs could not, like people weren't asking about polymorphs, they were asking about the universe marketplace. I mean, you guys can go look on the DAO. We haven't moved the money. We didn't put it anywhere else, but we have not stopped working on them. We had to put the dev resources on these other 3 products that we have to get out there. However, we do have a ton in that same 6 months. We didn't stop doing shit for them. Like we have like extensive 3D models for them. We've like essentially built them so they can be bridged to crypto voxels. We've done additional like art projects and drops that will be attached to them. Utility that will be worked around them. The battle game that we all talked about, like we didn't forget, we still built it. It's audited. It's the battle game isn't as important as the marketplace. That's the main way Universe is going to make money until we all work together as a DAO to figure it out long term. Something's got to sustain all this. So ultimately, I would just say that we did not forget about the polymorphs. We did not stop working on them. We just prioritized not launching all of this stuff. And I actually didn't think it was going to take 6 months for us to get all this done. So we just kept building shit in the meantime. So anybody that like thought we forgot about them, enjoy what is about to get dropped. We've also done other drops that are away from the polymorphs that are like full universes of characters, kind of what we originally started with, where I made my profile picture, that Daryl ape. We have comics. We've hired copywriters to write entire comic lines of stories. One of the reasons I stopped talking about this was specifically because people like Beanie, I would talk about something on a fucking Twitter Spaces, and all of a sudden he had some shitty version of it somewhere else. So all the good alpha, we're going to release it when the community can benefit off of it, and not when we get front run by people taking advantage of us. But it's all coming, and I'm pretty excited about it. This is kind of my second time doing this week, so I'm just getting all the high points and major points. But I want to make sure I didn't like leave anything. I don't want to. I know it's kind of a soapbox, and I said my AMA, and everyone can jump on, but I want like Troy to say what he thinks, and then I'll also go through the AMA questions that people are immediately asking.
I mean, I think you've covered pretty much, like, there was like definitely a lot of hype around the last AMA and the community got all excited, but it's too bad we didn't record it, so that's on us. I'm pretty sure this one is being recorded. So bravo,
Yeah.
Tyler, you did cover the 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 whole scope of it all. I don't know.
So
I mean,
we go through and hit some questions then, because we
yeah.
got 15.
Like I think RoboCop asked, you said that some of the things are not going to be totally decentralized. What are those? I mean, so again, the idea of like decentralization as like a spectrum. The difference with this is like the back end is not like this fully decentralized system. It is a system that can be spun up and run anywhere, but those instances can be shut down. So I think one of the things that we didn't really cover on this call was, and this came from Ryan, and it's kind of the way, or Chuba, as probably most of you guys know him, is that the way that we kind of describe it is, or I've always called it, it's like this, a clearinghouse for the entire ecosystem of NFTs. And so that what that means is that this backend can then be a clearinghouse to like a play to earn game, or it can be a clearinghouse for like NFTs, or like for any NFTs like that's out there. But Ryan then kind of put it in a more granular specter where it's like a three-pronged approach. So I can get the tweet for it, but essentially what it means is like there's the first tier would be the ability to run, like you'd have an artist page and you can launch your product on our system, and then you can then sell it through the marketplace, and you would have the artist page on the universe front end. The second way would be then to use our backend APIs and then plug it into like your play to earn game. And then the other way, the third level, which is the much more advanced technologically one, is you would actually take our backend technology and spin it up yourself. And that at least gets us to a point of decentralization that allows us that we are not fully in command of the entire apparatus. Is it the perfect answer? No. And are we working on ways to remedy this situation? Yes. So as of right now, that's the closest we can get to the decentralization of the entire backend. But we are 100% working on getting it to that final step. And this is when Tyler talks about, like, we didn't realize how hard of a technological challenge this was going to be. This is where this is the crux of the issue. But I feel like we've actually made a ton of progress towards being able to get to that point. And so I'm excited. I mean, we can't really leak the alpha on all that because people will probably try to front run us on it, as we've seen. But
I
that
don't think
is
that
really,
even can at this point, but ultimately we built it and it's coming. We just have to. I mean, the backend's done. We're rigging up APIs. We're testing it. We can't release a shitty product, but I guess one thing is like that I'll say is like the ability to run like fully decentralized storage. Like this is not just like a universe problem. Like, I mean, I was out at NYC, New York, and like Juan, who runs Filecoin and started IPFS, was like in like a pissing match argument with the guy that runs like Arweave, and they were talking about how they all fud each other. Like they neither one of them had built like a kick-ass solution that's ready to like enterprise level to take over the world. Same with like the front end stuff, right? Like we want Definity to come through on some of this stuff. Like Filecoin could come through on some of this stuff. You still can't run like a Google level back end, front end anywhere in the world on blockchain. And that's not like we can't figure it out. It's that the entire industry is working towards something. Same thing that I would say about the DAOs. But I think that a lot of people in NFTs they're not necessarily always people that were hanging out in DeFi communities and Discords, kind of learning the ins and outs of kind of some of these trade-offs that you have to make. So the expectation is easier said than done. Like Ethereum has been in development for many years now, and it's still working on like scaling capabilities. So there will have to be some trade-offs between centralization and decentralization. I don't think we're making
Can anyone else hear Tyler?
I think his computer might have died again.
Yeah.
I can't hear Tyler.
Yeah, I think he's gone. I mean, what he's going into though is like no one has ever actually like figured out this problem, right? There's been tons of different decentralized storage solutions since like the beginning of time of blockchain. Like one of the first ones was probably StoreJoy back when it was running on like Omnicoin, which was essentially Mastercoin, which was the predecessor to like Ethereum. And it's still around, right? But it's not the killer app that everyone's been looking for. Like there isn't a decentralized AWS yet. So, these problems aren't new, but we're definitely working through them. And if we've done anything, I feel like we've gotten us as close as we can with the technology that we have at our hands right now, that we can release a product that can at least be in spirit decentralized. And then longer term, we can take it to that next level. And that's really just what, everyone needs to kind of understand that. That's why we're trying to set expectations around that. But we will not be using the OpenSea API. It's not going to happen. Like we knew that from the beginning that was not the move. And so
actually, because it's not open source, and ours will be open source. And like I said before, it'll be a microservice. So people will be able to run their own instances. And where this becomes really important is, I know like when Burroughs dropped today, my wife, the first time I was ever able to explain to her like what the metaverse was and why it matters, is once you have these virtual worlds, like if you think about the ability for like when that Travis Scott thing was on, oh my God, what's that video game? Fortnite or like Deadmau5. And like those people pay for skins. They're actually able to go somewhere. Like Party Bears just signed Snoop Dogg. Well, Snoop Dogg can now go interact with his fans and like put on concerts and have like more inclusive events and like this kind of Oculus Quest version of the metaverse, and essentially not have to worry about like getting John Lennon. So when those people need to plug into a payment application layer, since that's not their main course of business, they're probably going to want to plug into the one that has the most liquidity. So what is decentralized is, in my opinion, going to become early on the most valuable thing about Universe as far as the marketplace goes, is the fungibility of the liquidity. Meaning when they plug in to that protocol on their interface, they may only want to show the stuff that they want sold on their platform for whatever reason, right? And that's fine. But they're able to plug into deep liquidity pools that integrate across the ecosystem. And they're able to list things there that also then show up on Universe. So if you essentially have this network, yes, each front end can determine what's run there, but the protocol layer is what's going to have the deep level of liquidity. And so people are essentially going to build their own backends, but it's still going to plug into the protocol. And that is what is so valuable about this. And the reason that is, when I was explaining it to my wife, I didn't explain it this way. What I told her is, if you were at that Travis Scott concert for Fortnite and those things were actually NFTs on Ethereum or Solana or anywhere else, like for when we go across platform, we're not maxis, we'll go where the industry goes. We're not going to build in. Right now, most NFT transactions are on Ethereum. So that's where we built to. The most valuable transactions are on Ethereum. That's where we built to. If that changes, we'll go where we need to go, right? But basically, going back to the Travis Scott analogy, Fortnite is a walled garden. Your skins are owned by Fortnite. Eventually, the whole metaverse, not just universe, is going to break down that walled garden, because the users are going to demand that they have transferability and can use all of these skins and things across other areas of where all this decentralizes. So like if you think that you're at that concert and Travis Scott drops something to you, well, you can maybe list it on that interface, but it's also going to show up at the protocol levels for the universe interface, right? You walk up to someone, they have a skin for sale at the concert, you can buy it off of them. That'll process through universe. So these platforms no longer have a reason to go through a layer that can essentially censor them because they have a competitive product. So that is why, for the same reason that liquidity will aggregate, and always it aggregated for Uniswap once all the sushi rewards went away. It's very hard to fork away all of that liquidity and usage, and that will be the hardest thing that we'll have to compete against with OpenSea, is getting listings on our platform, right? But on a long enough time frame with enough things easily plugging into us without the worry that we're going to shut their interface down, that's where it becomes pretty difficult to compete with. So yeah, you're not just going to interact with Universe on universe.xyz, or at least I hope not.
I don't think so. I mean, like if you look at the way like that comparison to like Uniswap, right? Like Uniswap is still used in other interfaces. But it's like one of the main places where the exchange occurs, right? And nobody uses Coinbase's API to do those exchanges, right? Like you're not using OpenSea's APIs to do those exchanges long term, mainly because everyone knows that how much they're making, and they'd much rather give it to like communities that are actually building in the decentralized web, right? So like that's a huge ace up our sleeve with how this is going to be delivered. Where I think we've probably beaten it a dead horse, but like using their like just creating a marketplace that like a new user face that uses their APIs and then putting some tokenomics on top of it, that's not the move. It takes longer, but long term the payoff is huge. So you're all in the right place in my opinion.
Yeah, so OX Robocop, who asked this question, and we're down this rabbit hole. Basically, yes. Like most of Uniswap like I primarily interact with Uniswap on like 1inch, right? Most of Aave's transactions don't happen on Aave. A lot of them are happening through Zapper. A lot of them are just protocols plugging into them, right? And the reason that Uniswap is so powerful, and even Sushi has become so powerful, is a lot of the integrations that they built, right? The reason that the integrations were attracted to them is for the exact same thing that we're saying, is like ultimately Uniswap can't take those liquidity pools down. So yes, that's how it's going to work. It doesn't mean that we're not going to pull things off of our front end if we get DCMA'd. It means we literally cannot pull them off of the protocol. I'm kind of going up some of the original ones. Start with team updates, after questions, time constraint, designate someone to make records, miss the project call, yada, yada.
Docs. We got to get the docs.
We're probably going to need the whole community's help on docs long term, because especially during the testing phase, I mean, that's why I want to I don't want to just do a vampire attack that ensures Ponzi-nomics and like wash trading. I want to actually incentivize the community and open up the community to be more people. And like, these are some of the things they can help with, right? Is helping with documentation, helping with all of these things. I don't really know if I'm missing anything. Like, I feel like we kind of hit everything. I mean, other than I would say that all of these protocols that I think everybody's seen that have like kind of spawned off of Universe, I mean, you can ask all of them, like ask Aaron at like Fluffs, ask David at Altered State Machine, the InterDAO guys, I mean, they came on as advisors. I think they were also inspired by what we were building, that they went out and started creating the metaverse. Ultimately, this was harder to build, so it took longer. But I mean, even down to like League DAO, which has been experimental but fun as shit. All of those are going to be plugging into Universe, right? Like, so all of this excitement that's happened around Universe, like when we launch, we're launching with like an ecosystem that is growing. So I think out of the gate, that probably seemed like a distraction, but it wasn't pre-marketing. It was like pre-integrations. Let's make sure we actually have shit that wants to integrate with us by helping all the people around us that want to make cool shit, make cool shit. But we've made some pretty cool shit too, and it's coming.
Yeah, so Prowess has a question about buying XYZ off the market. We actually hold XYZ, a bunch of it in the treasury. It's about 7%. And then there's the ETH on hand, and that will grow as the marketplace is running. And so, that will be up to the community to kind of put in proposals around that. We've had talks about creating.
I was supposed to write a proposal yesterday, but
Yeah.
didn't. And I don't know how to bring this up without talking about price. But so I'm just going to try to beat around it as much as I can. If you look at the volumes around what has happened recently, just on excitement, right? When we launch, there's probably going to be more eyeballs on Universe, right? If there's not depth in liquidity, it could do things to the pricing of the token that could look like manipulation. And since we're bringing on, everyone on this call has been waiting and waiting and waiting, right? Y'all know what's happening. We're going to get a lot of new users. And some of those users will want to own the governance token so that they can be a part of this future with us. I actually think that what we should do with a portion of the XYZ and the ETH that's currently in the treasury is deepen the depth of that liquidity pool, meaning we swap the ETH for USDC and the DAO joins that liquidity pool. I don't think we stake for rewards, because I think the deeper the liquidity, I'm not recommending anything about the price. I'm not saying it's going to go up or going to go down. I'm saying without deep liquidity, I think it could be volatile, and it could be a bad experience for new users that are just experimenting or exploring, right? And so I ethically care about that, and I think all of us should want people to get the best experience. So I'll probably put in a proposal to do that. It's ultimately not up to me, but I want to give some of the reasoning behind it without putting myself at legal liability for recommending if anything is actually going to happen. I want to be proactive so that nothing does.
Yeah, I mean, I think a good way of looking at it is like to allow for more participants to come in without getting into crazy situations, creating a lot of like potential butthurt in the long term. And it's important. So,
or just
let's
the other side of the equation, right? Like it just becomes unattainable for people to get in. Like the way that liquidity pools work, without saying that it's specific to XYZ, is if there's $1,000 in a liquidity pool and you try to buy $10,000 worth of it, one, you can't. But let's use a real number. There's $1 million in a liquidity pool, and someone puts in, $500,000 of it sells in a day. Well, that alters how that liquidity pool is comprised until new participants come in, right? So ultimately, I think we should all be aware of that, and we should utilize the treasury accordingly.
So to switch topics a little bit, Gunnar does have some questions. One of the things is he's asking us if the Universe Marketplace is going to mirror some of the features that Gem launched with. So the first one, multiple buys at a single transaction. I don't think we have that, to be honest.
I don't know if it's in V. So we
We're-
Yeah, it's
have
not
a
in the V1.
Hey, this is Mark. I'm just bumping in. We are working with Genie. I've been talking with Scott, the founder over there. Our marketplace isn't going to be able. Our marketplace isn't going to have those features built in, but Genie is going to offer those features for you to be able to floor sweep and do all that cool stuff on Universe. So while necessarily our front end UI won't have that feature, you will be able to do it from Genie.
But if Genie does it, because they sweep the floor on OpenSea right now, right? Genie's in an awesome position to be an aggregator. It's not that hard once Genie plugs into us for us to add something like that to our interface, right? We still accumulate fees either way. When you use Genie, OpenSea is making money. So I think we treat Genie as a friend, very much in the same way 1inch and Uniswap are friends. So we also, just so everyone knows, have like, this is where I want this all to become a lot more transparent from what's in Slack versus what's in Discord. We have like basically been dropping ideas. Like we follow all you degenerates on Twitter and y'all post ideas for cool like features for marketplaces. And we actually have like pretty extensive collection of features that are interesting to add along with like our ideas that have come along the way. And so, I mean, you can't launch anything perfect, but like there's a lot of stuff still to build, right? Across the board. And we're listening to those features. I think that we can start being a lot more transparent about how difficult it is to build some of these features, communicating the community on like that's just an interface level change versus that's a major smart contract addition that we have to go get audited and find Solidity devs to do. But I think those conversations should start happening in the open. We obviously just want to get like a head start before we start like leaking absolute fucking alpha. Lower gas fees in OpenSea.
Well, so some of that comes down to like, are you talking about the like, what are you talking about? Minting fees, purchasing fees? We are working on like a lazy. We are working on a lazy minting feature. It's not going to launch with that, I don't believe. But some of those gas fees, it kind of comes down to the ERC20, like essentially the structure of the minting contract. If you're talking about minting, so the amount of metadata that's in there.
Transfer fees are just Ethereum, right? Like tokens cost more money to transfer than ETH, which is why, because ERC20 is not, ETH isn't an ERC20. We've also been talking to like Polygon and Optimism. We chose to launch on base layer Ethereum because like I think we get that right first. But I mean, yes, we're definitely like going to optimize for fees.
Yeah,
The
100%.
flip side is if you optimize for fees too much, you end up with Polygon that has so many shit coins in your like wallet you can't even find the good ones, right? Like, so there's, and it's also not as secure. And I think people want Ethereum NFTs more than they want Polygon NFTs. So like, ultimately, I think that the platform is as optimized for gas fees as it can be. But it's going to be similar because we both are like doing most of our transactions on Ethereum.
Like one thing that's, I mean, Mark's talked about this, that it's hard to get. Well, I don't know. It's hard to get from like if you're minting on like a layer 2 back into Ethereum into another layer 2. That's really hard. But if like let's say you're like minting on base layer, right? Because everyone's looking for that base layer Ethereum stuff, and then you take it into a layer 2 for marketplace. I think that gets really interesting. So like those are ways that we can optimize gas for everyone long term.
Are you asking like a leading question? Because like you might have gotten alpha from like Algie or Mark or someone else, and like I know certain shit about Universe that Mark doesn't know. Troy knows stuff that I don't know because it's not one product, right? Like there's some aspects of divide and conquer, and so like if somebody told you that, I mean, we can verify it for like 100%, but I legitimately don't know that. And then also what you're asking about high grade analytics for collections, if that's also alpha, that comes down to the
You were talking about it. You were talking about it earlier.
Yeah, but like I didn't talk about all the features of it. Like we are definitely building analytics and features. Like long term, we also started to work on like a wiki that would also be like, token curated and community driven. Tim started to work on that, started to code it, and then he realized that at launch it was more important to have better minting contracts, which are basically coming as like alpha minting, which is going to come behind the alpha marketplace. So like all of this will start to collide where like the Muesli extension that I'm talking about is essentially going to launch as like kind of our curation, and we'll do it open in the community and work with y'all on it. The secondary aspect of it is going to be a much more community driven, where maybe even XYZ doesn't deserve to dictate what's on the Bored Ape page. Ultimately, we vote on that stuff, right? Like we can revoke access for things if things get out of hand. But yeah, that's like we're 100% working on that, and I think that it's going to be a very powerful tool to bring a lot of people to Universe, but it's going to be iterative. We're going to essentially roll it out slowly, decentralize it over time. We weren't focused on decentralizing that part of it because the other parts of what we're building that everybody's asking for, not nice to haves, but like existential for the system, are what we spent most of our time decentralizing. But yeah, there's going to be, we're not launching a clone of OpenSea is the easiest way to put it. I think in the community, when some of these like kind of surface level competitors launched, we've probably seen like one really cool tool. I don't think that we're offering one really cool tool or one piece of differentiation. We're launching, the main one is obviously going to be the decentralized aspect of it, which is most important. But I don't think the average user always cares about that. They'll care about it long term. But the actual experience of our platform is going to have a lot of features that are different and new. I
Shout
don't
out
know
to
where you
1
got
hour.
the 30% number, but now I want to know because like that's dope if it's true. And you have alpha, I don't have.
Yo, wait, I'm sorry, what was the question that person asked you? Because like I listened to like your whole response, but I kind of missed
I
the
just used
question.
you
Can you
as an
tell me?
example. I was saying maybe you talk to Al, because I know everybody's like friends with like Ali, Nick, Mark. Like not only do they work for Universe, but um, they're also like deeply embedded within the NFT community. And I also got off the last AMA and you were still talking some. So I didn't like, basically the way Gunner's describing this is it sounds like he has alpha. And I was saying, I personally don't know if you heard that from somewhere else. It doesn't mean it's not true. I just can't verify it. But he was saying apparently
Oh, okay,
transactions.
I see. I see. I see.
I was
I,
saying,
I thought he was
Text.
I thought he was talking about gems,
Yeah, he's
right?
talking about other marketplace. He not ours.
That isn't a marketplace. That is a aggregator. So Gem and Genie will be two protocols that we integrate with it probably, and they will allow people to easily buy NFTs through Universe in like certain using certain functions that maybe we haven't built yet, I guess. But I'm like the only thing that you can do on Genie right now that OpenSea doesn't allow, for example, is you can bulk list and bulk buy, and you can trade your NFTs for others. So like if we, for example, didn't have those features at first, Gem or Genie would come in and be aggregators for those features, but the transactions would still be happening through Universe even though you're on that site.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I use Genie. I used it to sweep the polymorphs for League DAO. But
Gem
I missed
or
some of the
GM?
NFT run up because I've been so busy building this product that after we kicked off the profile picture movement with Pepe, I didn't get to enjoy it the same way as some of you degens did. I mean, I did, but I actually didn't know what Gem was. But that's one of the benefits of Universe is we're kind of a mesh network that's built around all these things. And we've made a lot of friends along the way. especially because of our like dedication to doing it the right way and not like shipping a shitty product to market grab and cash grab. Like we wanted it to be right, but it was not easy. Yeah, Jim's dope.
Jim launched today, Tyler, apparently.
All right, well, I mean, it sounds like y'all have already been talking to him.
I don't know. I
actually made contact with the team in their Discord, so they are excited. They already knew what Universe was and are looking forward to us.
Universe has landed on Jim, Planet Jim.
Well, we're about to land on the whole ecosystem here soon.
So what's Gem about? If you have a moment to describe it.
You ever used the protocol Genie? Yes or no?
No, but I know what it is.
Okay, so what these protocols do is they allow you to do, like I was just explaining, do functions that marketplaces don't have yet. So like the whole point is that basically Genie and Gem were like, why the fuck can't I sorry for the profanity. Why can't I bulk list or bulk buy items? Genie is that's basically what Genie, the people who made Genie, thought, and so they built a tool for it, connected it to OpenSea so that they don't have to have their own marketplace built. They just make it to where you can easily buy and list your items on OpenSea, or any other marketplace. Rarible they also have integrated. They'll integrate Universe because I've already talked to the founders and they're excited about it. Genie and Gem. And basically, when you have something listed on Universe, if let's say the floor on the polymorphs is like 0.1 and there's like 10 listed, somebody could go in and click on all of them. They could even go past 0.1 and just sweep as many as they want in one transaction. And then the same goes for listing. Like if you want to list all your NFTs at 0.1 to like just dump them all, you can go and like click all your NFTs, and then you have to individually sign for each one, but it happens like way faster than trying to go through and do it on OpenSea, especially if you have like a lot of NFTs. Like I have 600 NFTs, so using Genie to list items is actually really helpful for me because OpenSea is like takes forever to load, and it'll just like allow me to do it a lot faster. So it's just like it's not like a competitor in any way. It's just like an aggregator. It's actually helping the marketplaces because it's driving more business and like allowing transactions to occur faster.
That sounds
Nice.
really dope.
Yeah. Well, those are what I'm saying, that those are the types of things that we're just going to be able to integrate. Like we've also found dope minting contracts with like Manifold. That's one of the benefits of our team, is because we were early and stuck to the movement, the ethos of what NFTs were supposed to be, and weren't douchebag cash grabbers. We've developed a lot of friends and connections in the industry, and I think a lot of people are waiting for Universe to ship, outside of just what kind of spawned off of us directly. And I know that the people in this ecosystem, in the community outside of the core team, are also putting in work and making introductions and talking to people. All the people that are on that website are involved in this project, right? They've just been waiting like everyone else.
Hush.
I think at this point, so it doesn't turn into rambling and people don't think they need to listen to a 2-hour podcast. I see Ben Lakeoff in here. What's up, Charged Particles? Another example of like
Ben?
our homies that are building innovative shit with NFTs, not like copy pasta stuff. There's a lot more people that were in here before, but ultimately I'm not doing this like a third time because I'm brain dead. And honestly, I really am trying to get off because I don't know when burrows are minting, and like I'm trying to mint burrows. Like Fluff World is gonna make it. I can talk about Fluff World a little bit different than Universe because I didn't drop it. Okay, burrows in 1 hour. Yeah, but I need to get like on there and see the alpha. Like I'm a DGen too, y'all. I don't.
Well,
own
before if we're getting close to like ending this, I do want to say shout out to, there's going to be a merch drop tonight. We can drop the link in
and that
the
merch
Discord, and the merch is sick.
Dope.
So if you guys make it, we're gonna buy some bulk out here. So if any of you end up in Puerto Rico at any time, we'll have some for you. hit us up.
Yeah, so shout
Uh,
out to Jin. That's our merch partner. He's been with us since Barnbridge. So just so everyone knows, if anyone's in Europe or Australia, we did have issues last time getting some stuff delivered because of COVID. But our workaround is we actually have EU and like Australian, basically like merchandise companies out there that are going to basically support us and help us get stuff shipped out faster. So it's all the same gear, like all getting, but it's all getting sourced a little bit closer to home on some of you guys, because last year during COVID we had some problems with some of the mail, but we think that this is going to solve it a lot quicker. So some of our more international people can get their gear a lot faster than they did last time. So, but yeah, everyone, if you bought that gear, you know it's like high quality. I talked about this, like I like all my gear that I got from them is like still awesome, like black hoodies that didn't fade. They're super comfortable, so they're very quality.
Yeah, it's
They're awesome. So
whoever that guy's getting to make his stuff is gonna make it. But Mark's right. I mean, also where they're going with this, like the Barnbridge stuff, it was just a hoodie, right? Like what those guys are doing with that going forward is dope. Like, I mean, when they originally dropped the Barnbridge ones, I think they came with like NFTs, but like I think they know where the metaverse is headed now. It's a year since the Barnbridge one came, so I think that they're building additional features into them,
yeah,
but that's not even universe. Like,
we'll give a little alpha on that one. Just if any of the Barnbridge gang has any of those Barnbridge NFTs from the last merch drop, I definitely would hold on to them or delist them if you have them, because
maybe I'll do something with the Barnbridge NFTs long term for universe. But
You
the
list them, dude. The Barnbridge NFTs are 100 ETH floor. If you go look at the collection, from the first merch drop.
I'll do something with them one day. Like, I'm not giving out a roadmap. We got a lot of other shit to build, but those that wasn't even Barnbridge, right? I just did it myself and paid for it out of pocket, and I just wanted to reward the early people. I didn't even know universe was something that we were going to get into. But the other thing I would say is
Yeah, I was talking about the other
I
ones.
want to
There's like 3
reiterate
different Barnbridge
I want to
ones.
reiterate something really important that
yeah, I was talking about the merch Barnbridge ones that came from the merch shop last time. A few people got lucky and got those are the ones I was talking about. But yeah.
Yeah, but the ones that you're talking about are sick as fuck. One of them sold recently on resale, so they definitely have people look at those.
I didn't do it for any other reason to just be able to track the super early people that put on, because they're a bunch of anonymous frogs, right? Which I'm going to bring something up in a second. But one thing I want to say about the merch that's really important, and I want to drive into everyone, is like small things that we've done along the way to ensure that like this is truly community run, is that all of like our trademarks, like all of our content, like everything that we drop is Creative Commons. Like we can't even DCMA people for polymorphs, like because we never licensed all of that. All of the code is open source, which is why Fluff's World was able to use some of the components of the Fluffs. Altered State Machine just used some of the. The George wrote all that shit as a gift for being the advisor, but we like even our brand, right? So like Jen, that's not like us. It's like official because I think if like all of us as the community think it's dope, right? But like that's like that's just something that's very important, is just even down to the level of like we're a DAO. There's not a way for a DAO to own IP, at least not now. Stuff that Troy is working on long term. But like ultimately, like that's not just ours, it's everyone's. Everything we drop is everyone's. And it's important that y'all know that that's like how some of the things are structured. So like, yeah, Jen's stuff isn't going to the DAO, but he took the initiative. He made a dope ass drop. I think the whole community benefits off of it, and it brings more utility to our ecosystem. But ultimately you don't need like our permission. Now, if you go off and do terrible stuff with the brand, then like us as all like a collective can say that you're damaging us if you start doing like terrible things with it. So like, don't go crazy. You don't want to like piss off a whole ecosystem of autistic NFT degens, but like ultimately we're not DCMAing anyone. The other thing that I was going to say is, speaking of the early Barnbridge people, I want to just talk about the early people in this community. We try, because a lot of y'all stuck around and there's been FUD and bullshit and people thinking we gave up or retired or gave up on the polymorphs. Like Prowess came in early on. This is also about how we're trying to empower like community engagement and start to blur these lines longer term. That doesn't mean that everybody like can have a job tomorrow. Like the DAO and that multi-sig was ultimately, I mean, a lot of just even like our core team's funding put into it. We had to make sure that we deliver the white paper. There is a multi-sig that we make decisions from right now. Long term, that's all the DAO, right? So, but like we are trying to bring in people from the community to provide value. So like Prowess has been working in the generalized ecosystem. He's been nothing but like a gem to the whole like NFT community. Burn address, I'm pretty sure that's a core team member. Gunner never left anywhere. Like I'm not just gonna call every person out. Like Azam came in and does a ton of work. Like Banana Mercy never left. Ben has stuck around and stuck with us. Navi started fucking with NFTs because of Universe and now is provide. I said to someone recently, I think Navi's 30% of the reason that Fluff World are where they're at right now, just in terms of like shilling skills. Donovan's like one of the only people that never changed his polymorph picture after people thought we like gave up on them. Fluffernutter, that person has done I mean, Fluffernutter is like another Navi. He's just done nothing but work for the Fluff ecosystem. JVK never went anywhere. Knowledgeable Idiot, same thing. Like brought Knowledgeable Idiot on to help with like a bunch of the work that needs to happen from like a customer service perspective. Honestly, our customer service probably would have sucked if we didn't have someone that organized that like knew their shit with it. I mean, I could go down all the polymorph people, but like I don't know like every single person, right? But like Lindy, Markler, I've seen y'all continue to ask questions. Max Collection, Matt's the guy that probably has a bunch of punks in a wallet that he's never going to find, but he's helped through the whole ecosystem, hasn't stopped. Like Arthur Hayes, I hope we find out you actually are Arthur Hayes one day. Like Pavel's core team, like Pavlo Bendis doesn't even get compensated from Universe. He just helps because he loves it and has done nothing but work. Like Senta, man, I think you just follow us kind of everywhere because we love synthetics as much as you love our shit. Transmental tried to originally like work with us as a creative director. We didn't have a spot for him, but he's come on recently and is like blowing us away with the shit that he can do. Algie's obviously my cousin, but Jesus Christ, if he didn't learn NFTs pretty quickly. Popo, you didn't go anywhere. Like Chad, I think you thought that I was scamming you and we weren't ever going to actually release the token after the Pepe thing. But hopefully we showed our true colors along the way and the platform is dropping. But a lot of y'all have been waiting around a long time and I appreciate the patience. It hasn't gone unnoticed.
Yeah, there's been some trying times, and as a community, it seems like we made it through it, and that's, I mean, what's really important. The friendships along the way.
Plus, it helps when things aren't perfect in the beginning because it lets people, well, it lets the protocol decentralize a little more than if we had just come out of the gate and never had any hard times. But then further than that, I think it also like builds a stronger bond. So like, I'm not lying. Like it's coming. It's gonna be fucking fire. I'm pumped about it. I'd almost say that like I'm Like I almost look at those other platforms at this point in a cocky capacity because I know how hard it was to build what we built.
Yeah, like you're saying, early on, we did have to kind of squash beef, and the people who made it through that, now we have some friendships with real foundation.
Yep. Hey, but I think we all go hop and go mint burrows, everyone.
No pun intended.
Confirmative.
Yeah, let's all go hop
Yeah,
and mint the burrows.
I'm literally shaking right now.
Also,
Oh wait,
shout out
hold on.
to
I gotta.
shout out to Aaron and like that community too, right? Like a lot of people could have used what we started and like fucked us or front ran us or I mean I've worked with Aaron for a long time and trust him, so he's not one of them, but like they also didn't try to grift, right? Like they went and created something dope on their own. Like InterDAO didn't try to build some shitty version. Like the things that popped up around Universe are like not copy pasta cash grab. Same with like League DAO. So like I mean even charged particles and alluvium, like we were involved with them when all this was like starting. Like we haven't stopped talking to those people. We have plans to build into all this that stuff long time. Genie, I've been talking with the Genie team since like May. Whenever they started even introducing that tool, like I was helping them like beta test it. So like I will say that I think that I'm not just excited about what we've created for our own product. I'm excited that we fucked around so much, like with this metaverse stuff, doing it the right way that Facebook changed its name. Like that wasn't a timeline I saw last January happening.
Yeah, even Walmart's getting into the NFT trading game, which is crazy.
Microsoft bought Activision. Ultimately, if they're not
Walmart is actually building a metaverse shopping experience so that you can put on your VR headset and you can actually shop as a VR person in Walmart, and they'll deliver your freaking groceries.
Hell yeah, I've been waiting for that.
Ultimately, Sosa is right though. Like, I mean, if Microsoft's trying to build like Excel spreadsheets in the metaverse, like they're late. They're too late because imagine like they wouldn't even know what any of this shit means in this like AMA. Like if they went into like our general chat, they wouldn't know like what anyone was talking about. Like we didn't build the metaverse for boomers. We built it for the degens.
Can we get
Get your
that as a
merch at
slogan?
Degen Supply. Yeah, for the Degen Supply. We'll do it. We'll put that on the shirt. Put that on the t-shirt.
But anyway, y'all, I love y'all. I'm going to hop away and
Yeah,
eat some rabbits.
Yeah, it's definitely burrow
Yeah, I
time.
moved all the way from Australia to the USA for this, so I can't fuck this up. I skipped leg day for this.
I am literally shaking right now.
All right, y'all. Later. We'll do these more often, and like I said, we'll try to bring some of the Slack stuff more into the Discord. Now that, I mean, we're gonna have some private channels that have to do with code. We don't want like lurkers in here, but yeah, ultimately, it's gonna start being a lot more transparent. I'm getting off. Bye, everyone.
Yep.
Bye.
Later, everyone.